Welcome to Melt. I'm Suresh Venkat. Now, all of us are familiar with the explosion of social media content and social video content. Can that content and its creators make way for a new age media business model? Well, that's the idea that led to the genesis of QYOU Media, a company that operates in India and the United States, producing and distributing content created by social content creators. To know more, we spoke to Curt, Marvis, co-founder and CEO of QYOU Media. What is the company's business model and what is its future? Let's find out as we get ready to melt with Curt Marvis. Hi Curt, let's start with the basics. First, tell us what is QYOU Media?
Well, QYOU Media started, the name of the company actually comes from the sense of QYOU. We were going to queue up the best of YouTube. I have a long past history with MTV actually. And in the 80s and 90s, MTV ran all the best of music videos and what was happening in the world of music video back at that time. The idea behind this business was that social video and YouTube had an extraordinary amount of content that was part of the fabric of what was becoming the world of social video. This is all the way back in what seems like ages ago now, 2014. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to organize the best of that content in a way that was both appealing to the audiences, the consumers who were watching it, sort of bringing the best of YouTube to them, and then also being able to have brands associate with that in ways that had specific content.
So if I were to summarize what you just said, Curt, it would be that all your content comes from the new age so-called creator economy. It's all created by new age users using their personal devices, all of that.
Yeah, when we started the business, the terminology, the creator economy, didn't even really exist. People were called YouTubers back then. The creator economy is really formed out of what's happened with TikTok, with Snapchat, with Instagram, with all of these platforms that have become hotbeds for social video content creation. And so our business has really been formed to take all of that. What started as QYOU to queue up YouTube has turned into queuing up everything that's in the world of social video. Mm-hmm. So our foundation for our business are the digital content creators themselves, the so-called now influencers, and then obviously the audiences that are consuming all of that content.
Curt, your company has a curious structure. You're present only in two markets, in the US and India. Explain this to us.
Yeah, we've actually gone through a major transition as a business since we started the company. When we organized originally, our plan was to be all over the globe. And we actually made a major miscalculation at that time. And what it was that we curated and packaged content from all over the world, primarily that was not specific to a certain language or a certain country. And we packaged that together when we curated the content and delivered things from all over. What we ultimately found out was that a kid in India is interested in the Indian creators and the Indian influence. A kid in France for the French influencers, the French creators. And so what's happened is that we ended up shutting down. We were in 30 countries, failing in all 30 of them actually. And India was one of those. And through a partnership that I formed here with a person by the name of Sundar Aaron, we decided to go and focus all of our business on the country of India in terms of what our business model was.
So Curt, your successes in the US market and the failures in the US market, what did they teach you about the Indian market, for instance?
When we started the business and we were curating content from all over the world, what we realized is here in India, a lot of people, unless you're in this country and working here, you don't necessarily realize the specificity of language even in this country. I mean, people might think...
we have a lot of them.
Yeah. Well, there's obviously all the vernacular languages, which is why we've launched a Marathi channel now, and we have that. So what we really learned was that YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, doesn't matter which platform you're talking about, they're really made up of communities of people. And those communities are very interested in their own culture and their own things that they're doing. And so that's what we've tried to really focus in on as we've drilled into India.
And you came to India in the year 2017.
Yeah.
What was your assessment of the media landscape then? And what is your assessment now?
You know, we all know that traditional television is in a major transition phase all over the world in terms of what's happened with broadcast TV. I think India is a country that television is still extraordinarily relevant. I think television's relevant everywhere. But in India, the digital economy is exploding just like it is everywhere. And our business model is always built to be a hybrid around that. We know that ultimately 10 years from now, most of our business and viewership will happen in the world of digital and app-based platforms, which is why we've been moving in that direction. But television is still a major mass market medium. And so we thought, one of the things that creators and so-called influencers can't do is put their content on TV. People, you and I could start a new YouTube channel or an Instagram page today, but we couldn't put ourselves on television today. So we actually tried to position the business to be a unique place for influencers and digital content creators to get their product onto television in 2017, and we continue to do that.
You spoke of a business model in your previous answer. Tell us a little bit about QYOU's business models.
Well, our business model really was always based on not getting exclusive rights to the content, but allowing the influencers. There's so much content that's out in the world of social video, it's literally impossible to see it all. I mean, when we started the business, the statistic was there was 600 hours of new content getting uploaded to YouTube every minute, okay? So by definition, social video content, it's impossible to view it all. That's where the curation part of this came. But what we also wanted to do is we call it the virtuous cycle of promotion. If you're a creator, if you're someone who's a Indian digital content star, Instagram star, and you have a show that's on the Q channel here in India on television, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to send messages, tweets, postings, everything else out to your followers to be able to promote the fact that you've got a show on at 8 o'clock that night on television, because television remains this kind of premium scarcity. Well, there's scarcity. Yeah. There's only so many channels that exist in that universe. And so part of our business model was always based on the idea of trying to take this content and put it in places where it was packaged and put together in a way where a digital content creator couldn't do that on their own. And by doing that, creating a new revenue stream for them. Because this is also something that's so important to these digital content creators, is where someone used to just have their content on YouTube. Now they've got it on YouTube, on Snapchat, on Instagram, on Facebook, on all these different platforms. And so part of what we want to do is be an additional way for that digital content creator, not only to be recognized, but also to make more money.
Let's now talk about your consumers. Who is the QYOU consumer? And why is this consumer important to brands?
Well, that's really interesting. We have the dynamic here in India, and I think it's a function a bit of our strong move into tier 2, tier 3 rural India and so-called one television households, is that we have a very young audience, so call it 12 to 24, and then we suddenly jump up to a lot of 30 to maybe 45-year-old women, okay? Why is that? We believe in a one television household here in India, you've got the mom who may be controlling the clicker for the television, and we're trying to create programming that's appealing to a young demographic because that's who the target audience is, and that also then reaches the moms. We're not sure where the dads have gone. So from an advertiser perspective, the number one thing that this company has always been based upon is that this so-called youth audience, doesn't matter whether it's the young India audience or the youth audience anywhere in the world, is extremely difficult to reach with the short attention span, with the lack of what would have traditionally been just sitting and watching television all day or reading a newspaper or whatever the issue might have been. And so we feel like we're providing a service for brands to reach a specific targeted audience, whether it's against a show that's a cooking show, a comedy show, a fashion show, whatever it might be, and be able to reach a youth audience in the process.
In one of your previous interviews, you said ratings equals revenues. What are some of the metrics you use in the Indian market to achieve these ratings?
Well, yeah, so in India, there's a measurement business called BARC, Broadcast Audience Research Council. And it is the system, the currency, if you will, in terms of how television channels are rated. And then those ratings translate into how you're pricing your advertising and how you're able to say to an advertiser, okay, here's the demographic, here's the size of the audience, here's the so-called reach of what we're getting, and then there's the viewership that goes against that reach. So that measurement becomes extremely important to us, which is where the ratings come in terms of using those ratings to be able to then go to an agency or a brand directly, whatever way it might happen. You're positioning that to say, we're offering this sort of premium audience. Our measurement tells us we're reaching this many people at this amount of time. And that's where the expression ratings equals revenue comes from. Obviously, it's also based on relationships. It's based on what the content is. It's based on what the sort of ancillary things are that you might do against that content. So it's not just specifically that, but that's a very important metric.
Let's talk more about the content that you spoke about. What is your current assessment of the nature and quality of content in the social media landscape in India?
Well, I think
how do we compare with our peers in the US, for instance?
Yeah, I think digital content and social video in general just keeps getting better and better and better. The so-called, the original YouTube dog on a skateboard shot with some shaky cam. Obviously, there's still viral video that's massive, that's out there, that's very popular with funny things that happen to people, etc. But fundamentally, digital content creators now are as important for reaching an audience in a mass market as a major star. I mean, you can take SRK here or someone like that in India. Obviously, they have huge importance. Well, you've got these digital content creators now that have direct one-on-one relationships with their audiences. The people, the kids and the youth that are watching these people and interacting with them feel like they're their friends, like they know that person. So sort of the old school Hollywood a star was someone who was off in a higher level. They were inaccessible. Yeah. They were inaccessible, which has, of course, obviously its own appeal and its own value. I think it's the exact opposite in the digital economy. These people create relationships where it feels like it's your friend. This is why it's so important for brands to associate with these people, because now they're selling products to an audience that's more discerning, that doesn't just think that person's been paid to produce and to promote a product, but that they actually like the product that they're trying to talk about to the people that follow them.
I noticed, Curt, you used the word called so-called influencers, one of your earlier answers. Now, with advances in cell phone technology, camera technology, easy-to-use editing suites, are we going to see a saturation of this so-called influencer content, too much content, and therefore users are unable to distinguish what they want to watch?
Well, I mean, I actually think that's what our business is all about. There is so much that's out there. It's like when I think of a company like Spotify as an example, Spotify has every song on the planet Earth that's ever been published, as far as I've been able to tell. That's true. But I create my own playlists as well, but usually I'll listen to a pre-curated playlist that somebody, if I want to listen to rock music or to jazz music or to whatever it might be, I'll go into that and I'll trust Spotify to pre-curate that content and provide me something that's going to satisfy what I'm looking for. We're doing exactly the same thing. So we believe that with the massive, unbelievable amount of content that's published on a daily basis, we have an opportunity to be able to really put that together, package it, and make it not just valuable for a brand, but make it easy for a consumer to see the best of that.
What they want to see.
Yeah.
The Spotify of the video world is something that you're aiming to be?
We never wanted to out YouTube. That would have been a suicide mission. We never want to be everything. Again, if you think of the curation model of a museum, that museum doesn't have every piece of art that's ever been created. It has a specific choice of things that come in so that when you go there, you know that what you're going to see has been taken from everything that's out there on the planet. So I would put us more akin to what Spotify does in terms of pre-curated playlists, right? Not in terms of having every piece of music that's ever been created on the planet.
Curt, you've taken some big bets this year. There's the D2C app QPlay and then the acquisition of a gaming company. Let's first talk about the D2C app. What's your marketing ploy to get this app into a consideration set of a consumer?
Well, I think ultimately the foundation of what we were talking about a minute ago is a direct relationship between these creators and their audiences. We feel we need to do exactly the same thing. We need, on a brand level, to have the Q brand ultimately represent something that's the best of, that's trusted, that you know that brand's going to offer you the things that you want to see and make sense for you. And so as we build that brand identity and we begin to get more and more people that are engaging with the brand, we want to make sure that we start to create a one-on-one relationship from a brand level with that end user. Well, D2C is where that's going to come into play. Second part of that is we're big believers in what's now being called social commerce, which is the direct selling of products and services from those influencers and from us to the end user. So the D2C model is also part of moving in that direction.
And acquiring an audience or acquiring consumers for your app is just the first part of the game. What's the strategy to retain that audience and to upsell to them, perhaps?
What we call now, what I refer to all the time now, is our loudspeaker. Our loudspeaker is that on a weekly basis, we touch for a couple minutes or more, currently, right now, 125 million people in India every week, okay? Our reach of our Hindi channel, our Marathi channel, all of our digital so-called connected TV or smart TV channels, our presence of our content under the QYOU brand on Snap India, on Chingari, on other platforms, that adds up to 125 million young people and their moms in many cases every week. And we see that as a massive opportunity for us. First, we want to build that number up to 200 million people every week. Then what we want to do is we want to be able to use data to break down who those people are, what are they watching, why are they watching it, and start to become much more data-driven than, frankly, we've been to date, because ultimately that becomes the real power of the brand and the power of our audience.
Let's talk about gaming. What is the opportunity in the gaming space in India?
Well, the gaming industry is massive. People don't even realize, I think, sometimes that from a pure revenue basis, it dwarfs the film and music businesses combined.
Oh, yes, it does.
Now, that also combines console gaming and casual mobile gaming. Our focus is really on the casual mobile gaming side, not on the console side. Casual mobile gaming in India is exploding. It's actually crazy how many people in India are now mobile casual gamers. A big part of that, obviously, is the proliferation of smartphones. Big part of that is companies like QYOU that are providing data plans that are allowing people to play those games inexpensively. And a lot of it is just the engagement of gaming. People love playing games. And China is the largest gaming territory in the world now in terms of users. India's coming up right behind it right now. We're big believers that what happened in China over the last couple of years is what we're going to see happen here in India over the next 2 decades, over the next couple of decades. So we look at mobile gaming, casual gaming, and that opportunity to engage with audiences, again, around what we're doing, to be very important.
Okay. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about influencer marketing. When or how is somebody fit to be called an influencer online or influencer in the world?
Well, I mean, you can make the argument that everyone's an influencer in today's world.
Hence your phrase, so-called influencers. So
yeah,
I'm curious to know what is the metric or the cutoff you use to determine who is and who isn't an influencer.
You know, we're generally working with people, I would think, on an average basis that probably have, at a minimum, 100,000 followers in their social video sort of platforms. But we also have people that are followed by millions, or in some cases, tens of millions of people. Really, for us, it's about the content and the connection that influencer has with the end user. And, you know, the influencer and creator economy, and what has happened is that those people create loyalty that is extraordinary. That followers, so-called followers of these people, they remain loyal to them for years, and they continue to grow. So it's sort of like, you know, whether it was a big movie star even in this era, but in past eras where anybody loved that star and would go see their movie when it came out, or a band or a musician that when that band played a concert or put a record out, everybody wanted that. That's the same dynamic that's happening now around influencers, but it's happening at a different level. You don't have to have 5 million followers for the value of what you're doing to be there. Mm-hmm. You can have a smaller audience, but it's an audience that's extremely loyal to everything that you do.
And with Chatterbox and BharatBox, you've taken influencer marketing to India's small towns, the so-called tier 2 and tier 3 towns. Mm-hmm. How is small town India in terms of audience different from marketing to big town or tier 1 India?
We found over time that a real opportunity for us is what existed in tier 2, tier 3 and rural. And I think even if you look at companies like a Google or a Microsoft or an Amazon or a Netflix,
they're all aiming for that.
Everybody, you know, a lot of the capital that's coming into this country right now is coming in to go after that market. And it was no different for us. I mean, this is obviously a place where education is growing massively, where discretionary income capabilities are growing in a massive way, where adopting new technology is happening in a massive way. So we see that as a really fertile area for us to continue to have great growth, and we're seeing that happen in real time.
And we are seeing some form of regulation of influencer marketing in India. How does this impact your business model, and what do you make of this regulation?
This has been around for a while now, not just in India, but in other countries where there have been regulatory things that have occurred to try to sort of control what is a bit of a Wild West, free market and open market. And so just as in the world of broadcast, whether it's the MIB or other organizations that have set controls over content and where you have to do certain things in order to play in that, I think you'll see the same sort of thing happen in the world of influencer marketing and the creator economy, but it hasn't really affected us. If anything, we're offering almost a service for creators by doing what's called S&P, standards and practices, and sanitizing, in some cases, the content to make it broadcast capable of being. So
you're in compliance with potential regulations, even if the regulations may not be 100% in place.
Yeah, so if you're an influencer and you just wanted to put your content on television, you can't do that. It has to go through compliance and so-called standards and practices. We provide that service.
And Curt, as you well know, India has a plethora of languages. You operate in about 2 of those languages. You operate in Marathi, Hindi, and presumably English. Any plans to expand into the other languages?
We're looking at that. We're big believers that the so-called vernacular or regional language area is one that's going to continue to experience huge growth. We've certainly looked at the South, which we know, has its own cultural identity beyond just the language identity of what's happening, or whether it's Tamil or Telugu or name your language. So it's something that we're looking at. Again, we've come to believe that specificity around these communities is super important to our business, and that includes language and culture. And so it's something that we're continuing to plan on expanding into, but we don't have any immediate plans as of yet. We're still working on the Marathi channel and making sure that performs the way we want it to.
All right, Curt, final question to you. If I gave you a cell phone right now and a lot of free time, what videos would you be watching? What are your top 3 videos you'd be watching? What would you consume when you're free?
Well, I know it's not available here in India. TikTok, from an algorithm point of view, and obviously there's the companies here, whether it's Chingari or Josh or whatever the platform might be, that basically is TikTok. It's a fascinating platform, and the amount of content that it puts forward, the diversity, the ability of the algorithm to kind of understand and be predictable in terms of what you're going to want to watch and what's going to appeal to you is incredible. So, I'm probably a bit of a closet TikTok user when I'm back in the United States, partially because we also, obviously want to learn about the platform.
All right, Curt Marvis of QYOU Media, thank you for talking to us on Melt.
Thank you, Suresh. It's been great to be here.
That's a wrap on this episode. You can follow Melt on social media. The handle is Ready to Melt, or simply log on to readytomelt.com. If you'd like to follow me, I'm @Suvenk on Twitter. Till next week, goodbye and thanks for watching.